Welcome to Business Casual. I am Mihae An, your host and author of The Stories We Tell and Perfectly Incomplete. Business Casual brings you unfiltered conversations with badass, inspiring, highly accomplished women. I am passionate about and believe in the power of sharing stories, our authentic, raw, incomplete stories, getting beyond the polished LinkedIn profiles to the real humans behind the titles. My guest today is Linda, President and Chief Commercial Officer at Wellness Natural, the company behind SimplyProtein. Linda brings decades of experience across some of the world's most recognized brands, from Kellogg to Clorox to smaller, high-growth organizations. Her perspective on leadership and life is both grounded and practical, shaped by years of navigating change, building teams, and growing business in constantly evolving environments. I absolutely loved my conversation with Linda for so many reasons, including how her stories were filled with such practical gems. One that I liked the most is how Linda and her kids made breakfast sacred as opposed to making dinner sacred, which was and still is what many try to do. Other key takeaways among many include: careers are rarely linear. Growth often comes through unexpected turns, pivots, and zigzags along the way. Balance is not about equal distribution. It shifts constantly depending on the season of our lives, and that is part of the process. Giving ourselves grace, especially during demanding periods, can change how we experience both work and life. Please enjoy this insightful and honest conversation with Linda about leadership, growth, and finding a way of working and living that fits you. Hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mihae. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for carving out the time and space for us to chat. Appreciate it.
I'm thrilled to be here.
So to get going, a bit of intro, please, Linda, so our audience get to know you.
Okay. My name is Linda Zink. I live in Denver, Colorado, but I'm from Detroit originally. Currently, I'm working at Wellness Natural, which has the brand SimplyProtein based in Toronto. So I'm very fortunate that I get to spend a lot of my time in Canada. I'm the president and chief commercial officer, and I've been here about a year now. And prior to that, I was with the Simply Good Foods Company in a lot of different iterations. I was there for about 10 years and worked on both the Atkins and the Quest brand for all of that time in various roles in executive management. Prior to that, I was with White Wave, which is in Colorado as well. And they have Horizon Organic, Silk Soy Milk, International Delight. They've since been acquired by Danone, so they are now part of a much larger corporation. But I've been in the food space for a good portion of my career. I've worked at Kellogg's, Clorox, big companies, small companies, Wendy's. I currently, as I said, live in Denver, and I have two grown children. I have a 24-year-old son and a 23-year-old daughter.
Did you always know that food space is somewhere that you wanted to stay for a long time in your career?
Such a good question. No, I actually, being from Detroit, I started in the auto industry
Yeah.
and assumed I'd stay there for a long time. And so I worked in the automotive field for, oh gosh, probably 7 years. And then I got a call from someone in a different industry that I worked with and made my first move of non-automotive, which wasn't food. It was actually for Yellow Pages, which don't exist anymore. Um, and then from there, I went to Wendy's. So Wendy's, working at their headquarters in Ohio, was my first foray into food. And it's fun. Food is just fun. It's something people enjoy every day. And there's so many emotions associated with food that I love the space.
What did you study, Linda, for your educational background?
So I went to the University of Michigan and I have both a bachelor in business as well as a master in business. So undergrad, I was very focused in marketing and graduate much more in overall business strategy.
Yeah. Yes, food, I agree. And it is fast changing industry too, right? The more research comes out, the more we know. I think so. I'm not in that space, but as a consumer, right? Every
Right.
one of us is a consumer of food products
Right.
for obvious reasons, and I see a lot of change.
Yes.
Um,
It's
right?
very, very dynamic.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to your point, there's always new information coming out. The challenge is it's conflicting in many cases. So you should eat low fat. No, you should eat high fat. You should eat, low sugar. No, you need to have some mix of carbs in there. So it's confusing as a consumer. But with that, what I hope people are beginning to recognize, and I do see it, is that it's very personal. It's dependent on who you are, what you want to achieve, and what role food plays in your life. So, food is definitely not a one size fits all industry. I mean, there's some general guidelines, of course, in terms of being healthy. But what people thought was healthy 10 years ago may not be considered healthy today. And so, we're learning so much all the time. And as someone in the food space, I really try to stay on top of trends. Food is very much like fashion in that regard. And, there's also a lot to be learned from other cultures. You look at things like gut health. Okay, in other cultures, they've been focused on gut health for decades. And, it's popped up in the US. It's now really starting to become more talked about, more accepted as, your health starts with your gut. So managing gut health is incredibly important. So it's fascinating.
Mm. Yes. And the personal thing that you mentioned, I see that. I have learned that recently, last few years, I've been learning that. And it is very hard. It's hard to determine which information is more correct than not correct.
It
And
is.
what is
It
good for
is.
me, what is not good for me. It is hard. And another thing that I recently heard somewhere, I think it was podcast, was that a lot of research still has done having male body in mind
Yes.
and female body, obviously very different from male body, and what is good for men, uh, not
It's
directly translate to good for a
so
woman.
true. It's so true. And, consumers will, some of them learn by trial and error, some of them seek out information. And again, it's very individual. I will hear somebody say, "Oh, I cut dairy out of my life and I feel so much better." If I was going to cut dairy out of my life, I'd be miserable. I like cheese and it doesn't have any negative effect on me. So it's very individual, very personal. And again, there's some general guidelines around health in terms of, caloric intake and, managing different health states. But in general, people have to figure out what works for them. And how they want to live, something they can actually, a approach to eating that they feel good about, that helps them feel good, but something they can also stick with.
That is very true. Yeah. Some diets are so restrict.
Yeah.
It's hard to.
And then,
Yes.
then you're just crabby and you're in a bad mood and,
Yeah.
life's too short. So
Very true.
you definitely have to find something that fits with you and your lifestyle. And, you know, um, being in business like you and traveling makes it all the more difficult. So finding those things that you can eat when you're on the road or find at airports and There has to be some flexibility. And then, when you're having a family dinner and you want to enjoy something special, you
Yeah.
want to feel good about it and not feel guilty. And food is life. So,
Yeah.
it's important for people to, pay attention and be healthy, but also enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of joy, I know you love your job, and I know you love Simply Protein. I love Simply Protein, the
I'm
team
so
you
glad.
have. I'm a huge fan of the product.
Uh,
We always have boxes of Simply Protein bars. And I also, had privilege to get to know your team, and I am a huge fan. What about your role right now at this point of your career gives you most joy?
that's such a great question. So as I said, I've joined the company October of last year, and it's a small company. We're fewer than 30 people, and I know every person. And watching people come together to build a business and grow a business that they believe in is amazing. It's such an amazing experience that I'm thankful for every day. I've worked at the large corporations and I've learned a lot, and they were great experiences. But being able to be somewhere now at this point where I feel great about the products that we are selling and what we're developing. And I feel great about our mission, which is really about tackling food insecurity. So it's one of those times in your life and career where things come together and every piece feels right. So walking through the door every morning is just a joy. It's a fun, you've been into our office, so you've kind of experienced the vitality that's here. There's a lot of energy, and working with people at all different phases in their careers and helping them figure out where they want to go, what roles are interesting to them. But at the same time, working in an incredibly competitive space, food and better for you food, especially, is very competitive. So no day is the same. I never get bored.
Oh, that is very apparent. Whenever I visited your office, yeah, that is very apparent, vibrant and
Mhm.
energetic, and people genuinely enjoy being there.
They
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
Everybody cares.
that's evident. Well, are you still figuring out, Linda? You've had decades of career by now. What are you still figuring out?
Ah, so many things. So many things. And I think like most people in that I know that I work with, everyone has embraced that they are lifelong learners now. The pace of change, there is no status quo anymore. And so I would say there's so much that I'm figuring out. Even though I've been in the food space, the point you made, it's changing so fast, and new entrants, new science, new forms, consumer trends are changing. So I feel like I'm always figuring something out. AI, which you're playing a huge role in helping us figure that out, it's changing the way we work. And how do we as a small company without huge budgets really leverage it to our advantage? And can we use it to actually leapfrog and create step change in the organization? So never a shortage of things to figure out. And again, I think that's, if you think about the type of people you want to work with, the type of partners you want to engage with, those people who have that intense, natural curiosity, um, to me, that makes the difference in being in a really successful organization. So I never in my life expect to say I've figured it all out. And if someone says that, I'm like, really? Um, So I know that was a long, a lot of answers. I'm still figuring out because the game is changing every day. The retailer environment is changing every day. So, like I said, when I started in the food industry, 20 years ago, it was much more stable. The retailers were much more predictable. They had set reset windows. They had standard expectations, and now things just in a constant state of flux.
Mhm. Speaking of AI, what have you seen so far? I know you have embarked your journey, Simply Protein. What have you used it for so far? Trial and errors that you've seen so far.
Well, you've seen some of my trial and error with that. I think I've used it for all the standard things, writing letters, responses really quickly, drafting outlines and agendas. And I found it incredibly useful for that. Obviously, one of the things I learned from you and your organization is the better the prompt, the better the output. You know, good stuff in, good stuff out. Um, and as I've gotten more adventurous with it, I've started using it for deeper research, really trying to help me understand consumer trends. We work in North America, in both Canada and the US, and there are differences. So understanding what are the differences, understanding competitive activity, what's going on, helping us really synthesize a lot of information. That's one thing we struggle with as a small organization is, there's a lot of data available. How do we synthesize it and make sense of it? So we've used it in that capacity. I think some of my error has come in when I don't give it a good prompt. Again, that goes to the garbage in, garbage out philosophy. And also recognizing that it does not know everything. The people, the intent behind it, the importance of knowing your category, knowing your business doesn't go away. So, I was doing some research on GLP-1s and asked some questions, and it gave me answers that I knew were wrong. And so I said, "Hey, I think you're wrong on that. You want to double check it?" And it did. It came back and said, "Oh, you're right." So it's not a panacea. It's not a fix everything, and I don't have to do the work. Where I find it the most helpful is when I really understand the core of the business and I have some problems I need to solve. It can help. But again, the value of getting a good prompt is amazing. And I think you were there when I was trying to make a visual and it just wasn't working with me. And you're like, you have to treat it like a child sometimes, send it away and then come back to it. And that advice has proved very useful as well.
Yes, I totally hear you and agree with you on that. The more we know what we know, and the more we know what we are looking for, the more information we can get out of AI.
Absolutely.
When we don't have the baseline, AI
Right.
is not as useful.
No. And if you don't know what you don't know and you trust it, bad things can happen.
Yes, so very true. Linda, you have two grown children. So that means throughout your career, you were growing your babies, your kids, and you're growing your career at the
Mhm.
same time.
Yes.
What was it like? I'm sure there are so many stories we can share with our audience, but yeah, what was it like? What was the most challenging thing for you? What did you learn? Yeah.
It's such an important question, and it's something that I'm asked all the time because women with young children today are struggling, and that to me is sad that we haven't made more progress in the area of supporting working women with children. So I was a single mother and growing my career at the same time, and it was hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was hard. Some parts of it are a blur. I'm like, there's times where I look back at periods, I'm like, I don't even remember what happened. Where I was very fortunate, but also very intentional. I worked for a company, and I've always worked for companies that have been very flexible when they're able to be. So, for example, my daughter was doing gymnastics. Her practice was at 4:30. I was able to leave work at 4, pick her up. It was at a gym, and so I could get on the elliptical, do my workout, and watch her do her practice. So you have to find solutions for things. And I'm very proud that I never missed a birthday. I never missed a game. I never missed a show or, a competition. But it meant I had to be maniacal with my time and my calendar. And it was something that I hadn't had to be before. I could be very, I could be flexible. I could travel whenever. I could do whatever. And I'll tell you, I was very nervous about having to ask for, oh, I can't make this meeting. Can we move it? And what I realized, other people, men in particular, don't apologize. They just say, I can't make this meeting. We need to move it. And so I started really thinking about how I approached it. And I realized that both elements of my life were incredibly important. And there was no reason I couldn't make it work. And it did. So the maniacal piece about my calendar, that has continued. I am so precise about my calendar and my time now, that I think that was probably what I learned more than anything. But I do hope that when I talk to people, and especially younger women who are, thinking of starting a family or have younger children, there's ways to make it work, and it involves giving yourself some grace and not being too hard on yourself. So I'll tell you a story. One time, it was the day after Halloween, and my kids had separated their candy and they were all excited, and I was making lunches, and they had put candy into their sorted groups into brown paper bags. Well, I sent my son to school with a bag of Halloween candy and no lunch. And you know what? I could have beat myself up for it. He had a great story. His friends were thrilled. His teacher
Yeah.
was not so happy, but was it the end of the world?
No.
No, it was not the end of the world. And, you've got to have a sense of humor about some of those things. And, you know, balance is never about 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 20-80, 70-30. And giving yourself grace is incredibly important. So I think that to me is the big takeaway is you can do both. It's never 50-50, and that's okay.
Thank you for that story. I by the way, recently, just last week, I published my third book, Linda. So this is my third book, baby, right there.
I need
In
it. I need to read it.
Well, thank you. In that book, this book is about ambiguities and paradoxes that life brings us, and we need to navigate through it. We humans, our brain, we seek certainty and black and white
Mhm.
answers, but life is not that.
No, it's not at all. And again, navigating that, it's a different path for everybody, and the path changes. I had someone ask me about they were concerned as we were talking about starting a family and what it would do that with their career, and I also I took a step back at one point. It was the right thing to do. I went from being a vice president at a Fortune 100 company to a director at a much smaller company. Ultimately, it was the right move, not just for my family at the time, but for my career. It opened up doors that had would not have been opened otherwise. And, the woman I was speaking with asked me, well, didn't you feel bad you were taking a step back? I was like, it was a zigzag. If I think about my career, it's not a sequential linear step. It's a lot of zigzagging, figuring out, okay, I really like this. I think I should do this, but I'm not very good at it. Should I develop that talent? Or is it not important for me? And so being flexible, being comfortable with ambiguity, and maybe taking a leap now and then can pay huge dividends. And even if it doesn't work out exactly as you planned, it's definitely a learning experience. And it's not a bad thing. So you've got to figure out what works for you. Just like food being very personal and individual, so is your career path and your life path.
Oh man, I mean, that between all these different responsibilities, Linda, I struggle. I really struggle.
Yeah.
As you know, my daughter is 7 and such an age where she still wants mommy, right?
Hmm.
Mommy is very important person in her life. And I know it's not gonna last, right? At some point in the near future, that equation will change. But at the same time, my career, how much I'm invested in my career, I struggle every day. And every day there's different answer to
Yeah.
different questions.
Absolutely. And again, it's important finding out what works for you. And I'm a big, big believer in not feeling guilty because you're setting an example for your daughter of to be a strong woman, to be an independent woman. And that's incredibly important. And yeah, there'll be a point, especially middle school, when your daughter's like, Mom, you know, stay at the corner, pick me up in the corner so my friends don't see you. Um, but I promise you she'll come back. My daughter's 23. I spent the weekend in New York with her and we had a lovely time. So they come back 100%. Um, but it's, we had one of my struggles was the kids' activities. When they get in, we had, my son was doing baseball and football, and my daughter's doing gymnastics and cheerleading and after school. And dinner time, so many families are able to keep dinner time sacred. We could not because of all these activities. So we made breakfast sacred. It's like we're going to sit down and have breakfast together.
That idea.
And it's still time together. It's not typical for many households, but we got up. We knew when we needed to leave. It was time bound. There were no interruptions because they didn't have the activities. So we had our breakfast together because we rarely had dinner together. And you've got to find what works for you. And I still, like, even though my kids are older, I still do dinners with both of them. And it's, honestly, I did breakfast with my son a couple weeks ago. So, what I hope people, you know, start feeling more comfortable with is just because it's not what other people expect you to do, if it works for you, that's all that matters if it works for your family. Because your kids will remember what you made work. They're not going to remember, oh, we never had dinner together. They're going to remember, oh, we had breakfast together almost every day.
Made a note. Breakfast, for sure. Because dinner is challenging.
It's so hard.
Yeah. And yeah, kids' activities, she wants to do so many different things, Linda. So that's that. And
Yeah,
sometimes I have event to go to, and my husband
exactly.
has event to go to. It's yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for the idea. Denver.
yeah.
What brought you to Denver?
I actually moved there to work with White Wave Foods.
Ah,
So I was at an organization in Ohio. And, I realized pretty early on it was not a good fit. From a cultural standpoint, they wanted to bring me in as an agent of change in the organization. When I got there, I realized they didn't really want to change. So it was a few months in, and there was a specific incident that happened at a leadership event that made me realize I wasn't going to stay there. So I started looking and very intentionally said, what are some areas of the country that I would like to live in? And I had a few. And Colorado definitely rose to the top. And I started working with a recruiter and ended up in Denver. And it was great. So that was quite a while ago. And it was a great place to raise kids because it's sunny all the time. It actually, I think, it has, if not the most, the closest to the most days of sunshine per year. So kids were outside a lot. They both snowboard. They both, it's a really nice place to be.
hear that quite often. Colorado,
Mhm.
I've been hearing quite often these days in
Mhm.
terms of, being a marketer, right? I search
Yeah.
for which areas are great areas to go and build relationships with prospects and customers and
Mhm.
so on. And Denver keeps showing up. So
Oh,
wanted
that's
to ask you.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'll stay there. I think in my mind, I would rather live near the water and vacation in the mountains. Now live near the mountains and vacation near the water. But that's where actually being in Toronto, is amazing because I can see the water every day. And even if it's too cold to go swimming, just seeing the water makes me happy. And it's such a vibrant city, such a walkable city. I walk so much here. So I get the best of both worlds. I'm very, very fortunate.
What is next for you, Linda?
Right now, I am very happy where I am. So, we are in the process of really growing this organization. We're in a brand that has been in Canada and established in Canada for a long time. But we are spreading building our footprint and growing into the US. So we still have a lot of work to do here. And we've got products that I'm very, very proud of, that we are introducing to the folks in the US. So I think for that, I'm where I need to be right now. And I'm absolutely thrilled about that. Um, for me personally, I continue to travel. So travel is definitely my thing. And fortunately, this is where my daughter still wants to travel with me. So I've got some great trips planned and I plan to explore more of Canada. But like I said, I feel like I've got a great situation where I'm spending quite a bit of time in Denver, quite a bit of time in Toronto. They are my two bases and I can explore from there. So yeah, it's just continuing to grow our organization, work with the folks internally to help them grow in their careers. And yeah.
What are some spots that you have in mind for traveling in the near
Oh,
future?
well, so Paris is my favorite place on earth right
No,
now. I
I love to
absolutely
go,
love
Linda.
France.
It's
I
my
love
top
France.
of my list.
And there was one year I think I went 6 times in a year.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm going back to Paris in February. It'll be a year since I've been there, which is longer than I like. I've been taking French lessons. I started them during COVID. So it's definitely a good thing that came out of COVID. I'd wanted to take lessons forever. And just with my travel schedule, I couldn't. Well, all of a sudden, companies had to create, Zoom. They had to create online classes. So I've been working with a tutor ever since. And so I have Paris on the books, and then I'm taking my daughter, my niece, and my niece's daughter to Portugal for their spring break. So those two trips are planned, and I usually like to have three. So I'm still working on the third. If you have any suggestions, I would love that.
I have to say Korea.
I've been to Seoul once, and it was so beautiful. It was a long time ago. It was when I was Kellogg's. And it it was and I'm sure it still is breathtakingly beautiful. And honestly, one of the easiest places in Asia to travel.
That is so good to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we are.
welcoming. It was lovely. And the
Yeah,
food, oh, I can't even, like the food was
yes,
amazing.
food is definitely, yeah.
Hmm.
I am totally biased. I'm from there, but yes, it is great place to visit.
I'll add it to my list for sure.
Linda, what a treat. Such privilege to um, talk to you and have you in this, I call it inner circle of amazing, inspiring women that I look up to, that I would love to continue nurturing the relationship with. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I just enjoy working with you so much. And I just want to commend you because I think it's incredibly important for women to support other women. And, as I look back on my career, I would have hoped to have seen more change in the workplace than what has actually been realized. And so I think it's so important to keep progressing the opportunities for women and the accessibility. And to your point, the point about being a mother in business, it shouldn't be that hard. It pains me to hear, people struggling every day, even though I did. It should be better. So thank you for everything that you do, and I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you. Until
Thank you.
next time. The next time will come soon, I hope.
I hope so too. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too.
That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember you have more agency than you often realize. Choose your stories. I'll see you next time.